Kingdoms near and far are watching us, and I have worked too hard to build our reputation. You have 1 hour to make a decision. If you fail to do so, you will regret ever being called my son. Once upon a time, in a faraway splendid kingdom, filled with breathtaking landscapes and clear blue skies, there reigned a king named Obika, who was known far and wide for his immense wealth. This wasn't just any ordinary wealth, for King Obika was richer than any other king of his time. His riches included vast fields, bursting with crops, countless animals roaming his lands, heaps of silver and gold, sparkling diamonds, and vast stretches of land as far as the eye could see. His magnificent palace, a marvel to behold, was constructed with the rarest and most precious stones, causing every visitor to stand in awe and every fellow king to hold him in high esteem. King Obika ruled over the Nzam kingdom, a place where the sun seemed to shine a little brighter and the flowers smelled a little sweeter. By his side was his beautiful queen Amanda, a woman of grace and kindness, who complemented the king perfectly. Together, they were blessed with 4 children, 3 charming princesses named Kachi, Chioma, and Cindy, and 1 very handsome son, Prince Ifeanyi. The royal family lived a life of joy and abundance, surrounded by the best of everything, from luxurious clothes to the finest food. The children lacked nothing, and their laughter filled the palace daily. As they grew, the princesses became known for their cautious and gracious manners, much to the pride of their parents. However, their brother Prince Ifeanyi was quite the challenge. Being the only son and heir to the throne, he was pampered excessively, especially by Queen Amanda. She had a soft spot for him and rarely corrected his mistakes, often saying, "Let him be. He's just a boy and will surely learn to do better as he grows." But this leniency did not help Prince Ifeanyi. Instead of maturing into a wise young man, he grew more stubborn and unruly with each passing day. Despite the kingdom's beauty and the love of his family, Prince Ifeanyi's behavior became a growing concern, casting a shadow over the royal family's otherwise happy and perfect life. In the vast and vibrant Nzam kingdom, Prince Ifeanyi was known as the most troublesome royal anyone could ever encounter. Unlike the gracious and gentle nature of his sisters, Ifeanyi was a stark contrast with his rude and proud demeanor. He had a way of treating everyone, both old and young, without a shred of respect, often acting in a manner that was both ill-mannered and haughty. Prince Ifeanyi's behavior extended beyond the palace walls. He was notorious for causing trouble far and wide. It wasn't uncommon to hear that he had gotten into fights beyond the kingdom's borders, where he used his royal status to intimidate and bully others. His actions were bold and brash, and he seemed to revel in the fear and power his royal title brought him. As he strode through the village streets, Prince Ifeanyi expected nothing less than complete reverence from anyone he passed. He loved seeing people bow as he walked by. It made him feel mighty and important. This expectation of automatic respect made the villagers deeply uneasy as they whispered concerns about their future under his rule. The fear was palpable throughout the kingdom. People were genuinely worried about what life would be like when Prince Ifeanyi eventually ascended the throne. There were quiet murmurings and uneasy glances, with some even questioning if King Obika could truly be the father of such a wayward prince, as Ifeanyi bore no resemblance to the king's wise and just nature. However, Such thoughts were never spoken aloud, as the villagers did not dare to voice their deepest fears and discontents. They harbored a strong dislike for the prince, feeling trapped in the shadow of his looming future reign, and wondered how someone so different from their beloved king could lead them next. As Prince Ifeanyi grew older, his actions became a constant source of worry for King Obika. Every day seemed to bring a new trouble caused by the prince, be it disrespecting an elder or commanding the guards to unjustly punish the villagers. His behavior was far from what one would expect from a future king, and it troubled the king deeply. King Obika would always find himself pondering over why his son acted in such a reckless and irresponsible manner. It seemed that no day went by without some sort of commotion or problem stirred up by Ifeanyi. The king's heart grew heavy, fearing what would become of the kingdom if it were left in his son's hand. Such thoughts kept him awake at night as he envisioned a future where the harmony and prosperity of Nzam kingdom crumbled under poor leadership. Determined to prevent such a dismal future, King Obika realized he needed to act swiftly. The thought of his beloved kingdom falling into disarray, or worse, being taken away due to mismanagement, spurred him into finding a solution to temper his son's wild ways. The king started to consider various strategies and counsel, hoping to find a way to guide Prince Ifeanyi towards becoming a responsible and wise ruler who could uphold the legacy of the Nzam kingdom. The task weighed heavily on him, as he knew the importance of ensuring a stable and just rule for his people after his reign. In a kingdom not too distant from Nzam, there reigned another sovereign king, King Acho. He was a wise and beloved ruler of a prosperous kingdom. His family was his pride, especially his 4 sons and 1 precious daughter, Princess Ojugo. King Acho often remarked that Ojugo bore a striking resemblance to his late mother, which filled his heart with fondness. The resemblance made the princess very special to him, as he showered her with attention and affection. To King Acho, Princess Ojugo could do no wrong, no matter the circumstance. He stood ready to defend her actions, much to the worry of Queen Chisom, his wife. The queen often observed with concern how their daughter's behavior was evolving under such unchecked indulgence. She would occasionally express her worries to the king, hoping he might see reason and temper his partiality. But King Acho found it hard to heed her warnings. As the years passed, Princess Ojugo grew accustomed to a life where her actions went unquestioned and her desires were always fulfilled. Her words often carried a sharpness that wounded those around her, and she cared little for the feelings of others, including her maids, who could never seem to meet her high and capricious standard. The princess was quick to anger, and her voice frequently rose in harsh commands and unreasonable demands. Her reputation for such behavior spread throughout the village, and soon everyone knew to steer clear of her. The villagers felt a deep unease, for in their eyes, the king's inability to see his daughter's faults allowed her to wreak havoc without consequence. In hushed tones, they lamented her wasted potential, calling her a wasted beauty, a young woman of stunning appearance but devoid of the grace and manners that should accompany her station. These murmurs remained whispers, as no one dared to speak openly against her for the fear of the king's wrath. The kingdom watched, worried and helpless, as Princess Ojugo's action grew increasingly imperious and disruptive, casting a shadow over the otherwise peaceful kingdom. Back in the kingdom of Nzam, King Obika was becoming increasingly troubled by his son's unruly behavior. he realized it was crucial to take decisive action to help Prince Ifeanyi mature and learn responsibility. After much contemplation, the king concluded that marriage might be the only solution. Although Prince Ifeanyi was only in his mid-20s, King Obika believed that the responsibility of marriage could help curb his wild ways and instill some maturity in him. With this thought in mind, King Obika shared his plan with Queen Amanda, who was also growing concerned about their son's future. She agreed wholeheartedly, hoping that a change in his status might bring a change in his character. Excited by their agreement on this plan, they decided to discuss it with Prince Ifeanyi. However, when they presented this idea to the prince, his reaction was far from what they had hoped. "Father," he said, his voice tinged with defiance, "I don't want to get married. I'm still too young to settle down, and I'll do it when I please." His words were sharp and filled with anger. King Obika remained calm but firm in the face of his son's outburst. "I didn't call you here to argue with me, or to hear when you think you'll be ready," he replied. "I called you to tell you my decision, and that is final. It's simple. If you refuse to get married and disobey me, I will cut you off from everything I own. I want you to learn responsibility, and you will start by getting married and then getting involved in running the kingdom's affair. It's high time you became responsible." Prince Ifeanyi fell silent, realizing the seriousness of his father's words. He knew his father too well to doubt his resolve. The threat of being cut off was real and frightening. Without further argument, he remained quiet for the rest of the meeting. King Obika interpreted his son's silence as consent and immediately began making arrangements to find a suitable wife for the prince. The wheels were set in motion, and the kingdom waited to see if this new chapter would indeed transform the wayward prince into a responsible future king. King Obika wasted no time in putting his plan into motion. He summoned the town crier early the next morning, instructing him to spread the word throughout the kingdom. All the maidens were to prepare themselves, for in 2 market days, Prince Ifeanyi would choose his bride. Queen Amanda was not entirely pleased with this arrangement. She had hoped her son would marry someone from a royal family, someone accustomed to the ways of the court. However, the king was firm in his decision. He believed that choosing a bride from among the commoners would teach the prince humility and perhaps soften his harsh nature. The news stirred excitement throughout the village, especially among the young women. Despite Prince Ifeanyi's reputation for being difficult and ill-mannered, the possibility of becoming a queen of such a wealthy and prosperous kingdom was too enticing to ignore. "Who cares about the prince's temper?" the maidens chattered amongst themselves as they walked to the stream on the day of the announcement. The buzz of excitement was palpable. "Imagine if he chooses me. My family's life will change forever. We will never struggle again. Our king is so rich." "And what makes you think he would choose you?" another girl would tease, sparking a round of laughter among the group. They continued their banter and laughter, splashing water at each other, their spirits high with anticipation. The thought of escaping a life of simple means to become the queen overshadowed any concerns about the prince's character. It was a rare moment of joy and hope for the maidens in the kingdom, who dreamt of a brighter future, not just for themselves, but for their families too. The village was alive with a festive atmosphere, as everyone eagerly awaited the day of the prince's decision. curious and excited about who would catch the royal eye. The much anticipated day arrived, and the palace buzzed with a festive air. King Obika had extended invitations far and wide, drawing a distinguished crowd of kings, queens, princes, princesses, and other notable figures to witness the grand occasion of his only son's marriage selection. The event was planned on a lavish scale, reflecting the importance of the occasion to the king. The invited royalty occupied ornately decorated seats, their expressions a mix of curiosity and amusement. While some privately questioned King Obika's decision not to choose a bride from a royal family, given his wealth and stature, they kept their doubts to themselves. Among the guests were King Achor and his family, including his beautiful Princess Ojugo, who sat beside her mother, both adorned in a stunning attire, adding to the glamour of the event. As the ceremony began, Prince Ifeanyi, dressed in the finest royal regalia, took his place between his parents. One by one, beautifully dressed maidens approached him, each performing a dance intended to capture his heart. If a maiden did not please the prince, she simply moved on, allowing the next hopeful one try her luck. The audience was captivated by these performances, each maiden swaying and dancing to the enchanting rhythms, their movements a visual feast. Meanwhile, from their vantage point, Queen Chisom whispered to Princess Ojugo, urging her to take this opportunity to consider her own future. You need to start thinking about marriage. You are becoming a nuisance in our kingdom. This is one great opportunity for you to find yourself a good prince to marry you. Look around and make sure you mingle. If not, we will get you married ourselves. This upset the princess deeply. She cherished her life of privilege and the indulgence of her father, and felt that her mother was trying to push her away, a sentiment that made her feel unloved and misunderstood. Her thoughts were interrupted by her mother's voice again. Look over there. See that handsome prince? He's been staring at you. Perhaps you've already caught a suitor's eye, her mother exclaimed, trying to draw her attention to a potential match. Irritated and wanting to escape her mother's persistent suggestions, Princess Ojugo stood up abruptly and walked away, seeking a quiet corner in the unfamiliar palace. She longed for a place to sit in peace, away from her mother's annoying whispers and the bustling crowd, until the event ended. As she moved through the ground palace, her mind was a well of emotions, caught between the expectations of royalty and her desire for personal freedom. The grand celebration in the palace of Nzam drew to a close with an unexpected twist. Prince Ifeanyi had not chosen a bride, despite the parade of hopeful maidens. He declared that none met his expectations, leaving his father, King Obika, deeply frustrated. The king, feeling both embarrassed and angered by his son's indecisiveness, summoned the prince to his private chambers for a stern conversation. We discussed this, Ifeanyi, the king said with a fiery look in his eyes. You knew about this event and you didn't raise any objections then. But father, I never actually agreed to choose a bride today, Prince Ifeanyi countered, trying to defend his position. It was all your making. The king's voice grew louder, his tone firm and commanding. Listen to me, young man. You cannot make a fool out of me or the dignitaries who have attended today's events. You need to go back out there. Choose a wife immediately or I will disown you. Do you understand the gravity of your actions? Kingdoms near and far are watching us, and I have worked too hard to build our reputation. You have 1 hour to make a decision. If you fail to do so, you will regret ever being called my son." As King Obika stormed out of the chamber, his anger obvious, Queen Amanda entered. She saw the troubled look on her son's face and knew her husband's temper all too well. King Obika was not one to make idle threats. She approached Prince Ifeanyi with a gentle yet serious tone. "Please, do whatever your father asks of you," she urged. "He truly wants what's best for you and the kingdom. This is not about choosing a wife. It's about learning to take responsibility and thinking about the future of our people." The queen's words hung in the air as Ifeanyi considered the weight of the situation. With the clock ticking, he knew he had to make a decision that would not only appease his father, but also shape his destiny and that of the kingdom. The pressure was immense, but it was a decisive moment that required him to step up and fulfill his duties as the future king. Prince Ifeanyi was granted just 1 hour to make a monumental decision, and he needed some space to think. He decided to stroll to his favorite spot in the entire palace, the garden. It was usually a peaceful retreat, known for its stunning beauty and tranquility. Today, however, he discovered he was not alone. To his astonishment, there sat a beautiful maiden, adorned like a princess, casually eating an apple she had picked from the garden, seemingly lost in the pleasure of the fruit. Despite his initial fury at this intrusion, Prince Ifeanyi couldn't help but notice her striking beauty. He wondered who she was and what she was doing in his private sanctuary. It was common knowledge among the palace staff and guests that this garden was his refuge, a place no one entered without his permission. As he approached her with long strides, his curiosity turned to irritation. Tapping her on the shoulder, he demanded, "Who are you and what are you doing in my garden? And eating my fruits no less." His voice was tinged with anger and mockery as he added, "You seem untamed, mannerless, and clearly have boundary issues." The maiden's eyes snapped open in surprise. "What? And who are you? The god of the garden?" she retorted sharply. "Look, young man, I don't know who you are, and frankly, I don't care. You seem frustrated and bitter with your life right now, and that's not my problem. You could go jump into an ocean for all I care." She adjusted herself in a chair, clearly unbothered by his presence. Prince Ifeanyi was taken aback. Never before had anyone spoken to him with such disregard. Who was this bold, fearless maiden? For a moment he was speechless, his usual quick-tempered, stalled by her audacity. As he sat down beside her, still reeling from her words, he listened as she continued to speak, unaware of who he was. "I don't understand why my mother hates me so much," she lamented. "She wants me to get married just to get rid of me. And she thinks this is a perfect opportunity for me to snag a wealthy prince. Does she even care what I want? Sometimes I wonder if she's really my mother. She doesn't treat me like my father does." Her voice was thick with sadness. Hearing her story, Prince Ifeanyi felt a strange connection. They were both under similar pressure, although he had much less time to resolve his dilemma. An idea began to form in his mind. "Why don't you want to get married?" he asked gently. She sighed. "My father gives me everything I want. Freedom, love, the best of everything. I'm scared that marriage will cage me, that my husband won't treat me the way my father does. I want to enjoy life. I want to be free." Princess Ojugo was surprised at how easy it was to talk to this stranger, not realizing she was speaking to Prince Ifeanyi himself. As she spoke, The prince saw an opportunity, not just to solve his immediate problem, but perhaps to meet someone who understood his own fears about marriage. Taking a deep breath, he revealed his identity and proposition. "I'm Prince Ifeanyi, the son of King Obika, and I have less than an hour to choose a bride, or my father will disown me. I don't want to get married either, at least not in the traditional sense. But listen, we could help each other. I can give you the freedom and the lifestyle you cherish. My family is incredibly wealthy and we can arrange our lives to suit our desires." Her eyes widened in shock, realizing she was speaking to the prince whose bride selection she had come to witness. He continued, "My father thinks I'm unruly and needs marriage to reform me. But what if we could both enter this with our own terms? You may not get another chance to live the life you want, but with me you could." As Prince Ifeanyi spoke, he did so with a mix of pleading and pride, offering her not just a solution to his predicament, but a partnership that could potentially fulfill both their desires for freedom and autonomy in their lives. Princess Ojugo couldn't help but notice the hint of pride in Prince Ifeanyi's voice as he made his proposal. It seemed unusual for him to ask for something so politely, probably not something he was accustomed to doing. The idea he presented sounded crazy, yet it was an opportunity that might never come her way again. She dreamed of a life filled with luxury and freedom, and here it was, practically handed to her. But she felt he needed to put a bit more effort into his request. She wanted to see if he would truly humble himself. "I will consider this," she said, her voice playful yet firm, "but only if you kneel down and ask me properly to marry you." "What?" Prince Ifeanyi exclaimed, his eyebrows shot up in disbelief. "Me, Prince Ifeanyi, kneel down and beg you to marry me? You must be out of your mind." "Fine," Princess Ojugo shrugged casually, rising to her feet. "I'm not the one who has only a few minutes to find a partner. You are free to do whatever you wish." She started to walk away, leaving him to ponder his options. Just as she stepped away, the prince reached out, grabbing her hand to stop her. Realizing the gravity of his situation, he let his pride go, dropped to one knee and looked up at her earnestly. "Please don't go. I beg you to marry me," he pleaded, his voice sincere. Seeing him on his knee, his face a picture of genuine humility, was more than she expected. It touched her, and she knew he had sacrificed his pride to ask her this. Overcome with a mix of victory and excitement, she exclaimed, "Yes, I will marry you." She couldn't stop thinking about how shocked her mother would be when she saw her, the troublesome princess, getting married to the prince. The thought brought a mischievous smile to her face. Together they walked back to the event hand in hand, putting on a show of newfound love. As they re-entered the celebration, holding hands and their faces beaming, everyone watched, intrigued by this sudden turn of events. Princess Ojugo felt a thrill at playing this part, already picturing her new life of freedom and adventure, now within reach, thanks to this bold, unexpected alliance. Everyone at the grand event turned their head in surprise as Prince Ifeanyi and Princess Ojugo walked in together, hand in hand. Whispers spread like wildfire through the crowd as they watched the pair approach the throne. With a solemn and determined look, Prince Ifeanyi led the princess before King Obika, and dropping to one knee, he declared, "Father, this is the woman I love, and it is with her that I wish to spend my life." King Obika, taken aback by this sudden turn of events, scanned the princess's features. It was clear she was of royal blood, her elegance unmistakable. Before the king could process his thoughts, Queen Amanda intervened. "If he prefers her, my king, let us support their union. It's better than the alternative of him not marrying at all. We could save ourselves from shame." The wisdom in the queen's words struck a chord with King Obika. Exhausted by the ongoing challenge with his son, yet still harboring doubts, he laid his conditions firmly. "Look, young man, if you marry her, remember there is no turning back. If you ever separate, you will forfeit everything I have provided." The weight of his father's words hung heavily on Prince Ifeanyi, but he nodded in agreement, the seriousness of the commitment clear in his eyes. King Obika then turned to Princess Ojugu and asked politely, "Do you truly love my son?" With a confident smile, she replied, "Yes, I do." "Very well," said the king, nodding. "Let's meet your parents to secure their consent before proceeding." As the crowd enjoyed performances from various dance troupes, the two families retreated to King Obika's chambers for a private discussion. The queens, Queen Amanda and Queen Chisu, were visibly excited. But King Acho was cautious, whispering to his daughter, "Are you sure you want to do this?" "Yes, father, I want to marry the prince," Ojugu assured him. The conversation was brief, and with some persuasion from Queen Chisu, King Acho reluctantly gave his consent. Soon after, the bride price was paid. A dazzling array of silver, gold, diamonds, and precious stones. The princess's parents were overjoyed, not just because of the wealth they received, but also because their daughter's marriage to Prince Ifeanyi elevated their status as in-laws to the great King Obika of the Nzam kingdom. They had never imagined that Princess Ojugu would bring them such fortune and happiness. The marriage ceremony itself was a lavish affair, and as the vows were exchanged, the village maidens who had once hoped to be chosen looked on with a mix of awe and disappointment. Their dreams of royalty dashed as they returned to their homes. The union of Prince Ifeanyi and Princess Ojugu marked a new beginning, not just for the couple, but for both their families and kingdoms, celebrating a partnership that had begun unexpectedly, but promised to blend their futures with joy and prosperity. Prince Ifeanyi had never encountered anyone quite like his wife, Princess Ojugu. She was fiercely independent and wholly self-centered, concerned only with her own desires and pleasures. Her world revolved around the latest fashions, sparkling jewels, and thrilling adventures. She seemed happiest when plotting their next exotic vacation, poring over maps and travel guides to find the most breathtaking destinations. True to her words, all she sought from life was the freedom to enjoy its luxuries, a wish that was now fully within her grasp. At first, this arrangement suited Prince Ifeanyi just fine. It was what he had wanted after all. But as time passed, he found himself increasingly drawn to her vivacious personality. He noticed the joyous way she laughed when something delighted her, and her carefree attitude began to captivate him. The more he observed her, the more he admired her zest for life and her unabashed pursuit of happiness. This growing fascination alarmed Prince Ifeanyi. He feared that his feelings might deepen into something he wasn't ready to confront: love. In an attempt to guard his heart, he decided that they should live in separate rooms. The king had granted them a luxurious mansion within the palace grounds, large enough to ensure their privacy. Prince Ifeanyi reasoned that if they maintained some distance at home, he could manage his feelings more easily, especially since they continued to present a united front during public appearances. So, he moved to a different room. expecting that this might alter their dynamics somewhat. However, Princess Ojugo seemed utterly unfazed by this change. Her indifference only made her more intriguing to him. Despite his efforts to create distance, he found himself thinking about her more than ever, drawn to her independent spirit and the mystery of her inner world. This unexpected intrigue made each day more interesting, as Prince Ifeanyi discovered the complex joys and challenges of being married to a woman as strong-willed and self-assured as Prince Ojugo. Prince Ifeanyi and Princess Ojugo continued to live together more like roommates than a married couple. Princess Ojugo relished her dream life filled with excitement and glamour, while Prince Ifeanyi struggled with his deepening feelings for her, trying his best to keep them hidden. He was a prince who prided himself on following the rules, and admitting his feelings didn't seem right. A few months into their marriage, a grand occasion was on the horizon. King Obika was about to celebrate his 60th birthday. The celebration was planned on a magnificent scale, a 3-day feast that promised to be filled with joy and grandeur. The palace, with its sprawling mansions, was more than capable of accommodating the numerous royals who would travel from distant kingdoms to join the festivities. Princess Ojugo was particularly thrilled about the events. She eagerly contacted the finest designers and beauticians to ensure she looked her absolute best. She loved any chance to shine and showcase her beauty to the world. As the palace buzzed with preparations, everyone eagerly anticipated the grand event. The night before the festivities began, Prince Ifeanyi and Princess Ojugo sat down for dinner together. In the midst of their meal, Princess Ojugo, bubbling with excitement, suddenly shared, "I've enjoyed life and freedom just as I wished this past month. And now I think I want to experience what love feels like." Prince Ifeanyi almost choked on his food. "What? With who?" he spluttered, disbelief coloring his tone. "I guess our private lives are none of our business, right? Remember, we agreed to stay out of each other's way, and I don't ask you about the women you see. Do you think I don't know?" she retorted sharply. The prince scoffed, feeling a mix of anger and hurt. "You obviously don't know anything," he muttered, standing up abruptly and leaving the table. His heart felt like it was breaking into pieces. Now she was openly considering loving someone else, and it was more than he could bear. Since marrying Ojugo, the king and queen had noticed a significant change in Prince Ifeanyi. He seemed calmer, more mature, and he wasn't causing trouble as much as he used to. They also couldn't help but notice how he looked at his wife during public appearances. It was clear to them that he was deeply in love with her. The king and queen were quietly pleased, believing that their decision to push for the marriage had been wise. Alone in the garden, where he had first met Princess Ojugo, Prince Ifeanyi recalled how she had boldly stood up to him, challenging him in ways no one else ever had. She had captivated him with her fearless spirit and independence. As he sat there, he resolved to let go of his pride and finally express his true feelings to her. It was a daunting decision, but he knew it was time to reveal his heart. The next day dawned bright and clear, the air filled with excitement for the grand birthday celebration of King Obika. Princess Ojugo had chosen to wear a breathtakingly beautiful dress that made her the center of attention. When Prince Ifeanyi caught sight of her, he was mesmerized. He couldn't tear his eyes away from her stunning appearance. Yet, as he gazed at her, a wave of sadness washed over him. He worried that today might be the day she would find someone else to love. Determined not to let that happen, he decided to watch her closely throughout the event. As the festivities kicked off, it became quickly apparent that Princess Ojugo was the star of the evening. Many young princes, drawn by her beauty and charm, vied for her attention, hoping for a chance to dance with her. Among them, she chose to dance with the most handsome prince, feeling a spark of interest that she thought might blossom into the experience of love she was curious about. Prince Ifeanyi, standing at a distance, watched them dance together. Jealousy and anger began to bubble inside him as he noticed the way the other prince looked at Ojugo with a gaze filled with admiration and desire. That look, that interaction was too much for Ifeanyi to bear. Unable to contain his feelings any longer, he strode onto the dance floor and interrupted them, pulling Ojugo into a dance with him as though it were just part of the celebration. "What do you think you are doing?" Ojugo asked, taken aback by his sudden appearance. "I should be asking you that," Ifeanyi retorted sharply. "You should respect me as your husband. Didn't you see the way he was staring at you, with so much lust in his eyes?" "But what I do with him is none of your business," she fired back. "You know how we got married. I don't meddle in your affairs with other women, and I don't even care about them. Let me be happy." With that, she returned to the young prince, who welcomed her back with open arms, and they resumed their dance. Feeling a mix of anger and helplessness, Prince Ifeanyi didn't want to cause a public scandal, yet he couldn't stand to watch his wife flirting openly. Frustrated and angry, he left the celebration early and returned to their mansion. Once home, he sat down and began to drink wine in an attempt to calm his frayed nerves. As he drank, he anxiously waited for Ojugo to return. His mind raced with dark thoughts. If she dared to stay away too long or failed to return at all, he feared he might do something drastic to the prince who had captured her interest. His heart ached with a tumult of emotions as he waited for her return, torn between his growing love for her and the pain of seeing her with another. After the festivities had died down, Princess Ojugo and her new acquaintance, Prince Dike, found a secluded spot to talk under the stars. They chatted late into the night, enjoying each other's company immensely. As the night wore on, they agreed to part ways and meet again the following day. Meanwhile, Prince Ifeanyi was waiting up for her. He was quite drunk and struggling with his feelings. When Princess Ojugo finally returned, she walked past him without a word and headed straight to her room, leaving Ifeanyi feeling more invincible and hot than ever before. He blamed himself for agreeing to the marriage in the first place. He never anticipated that he might actually fall in love with her. Exhausted and overwhelmed, Ifeanyi eventually fell asleep on the couch in the living room. The next morning, he was jolted awake by a loud knock at the door. He stumbled over and saw a palace guard he didn't recognize, holding a package and a note. He took them quickly, closed the door to read the note privately. The note was from Prince Dike. "I've never felt what I felt with you last night. I wished you never had to leave. It would gladden my heart if you would do me the favor of riding with me before the sun sets. Let's meet at the garden like you suggested. I sent over some sweets with this note to sweeten your day. Love, Prince Dike." Ifeanyi was furious. He shouted in disbelief as a note slipped from his hands. His wife was arranging to meet another man in his own garden. Enraged, he freshened up quickly, mounted on his horse and rode to the garden to confront the situation head-on. When he arrived, he found Prince Dike already there waiting. The sight of him sitting calmly as if he owned the place infuriated Ifeanyi even more. Without hesitation, Ifeanyi leaped from his horse and charged at Dike, throwing punches furiously. He was stronger than Dike and soon had him pinned to the ground, struggling for breath. "How dare you flirt with my wife?" Ifeanyi yelled as he continued to throw punches. The commotion caught the attention of the palace guards, who hurried over and pulled the two apart. As Ifeanyi turned to leave the garden, seething with anger, he saw Ojugo standing there, tears welling up in her eyes, shocked by the violence she had just witnessed. He tried to pull her with him, but she resisted. In a moment of desperation, he lifted her onto his horse and rode back to the palace with her. Prince Dike, left alone and confused, realized he had been unwittingly drawn into a complicated situation. He didn't know Ojugo was married. Feeling tricked and angry, he gathered his belongings and left the palace, determined to distance himself from the madness he had stumbled into. As soon as they reached the mansion, Princess Ojugo swiftly dismounted from the horse and marched into the living room. She stood there fuming, waiting for Prince Ifeanyi to follow her inside. As soon as he entered, she confronted him. "And what was that stunt you pulled out there?" she demanded angrily. "Why would you embarrass me like that?" "I only wanted to save you," Ifeanyi replied earnestly. "That guy isn't right for you. He can't give you the true love you deserve. He will just use you and then break your heart. Can't you see how fast he's moving?" "And who are you to judge that?" she shot back, her voice thick with anger. "Do you even know what love is? Tell me, have you ever been truly in love? Just when I think I'm finding someone serious, you come in and ruin everything." Her voice cracked as she continued. "We promised to stay out of each other's way. I think it's high time we tell the king and queen the truth. I can't keep pretending to be happy. I am not. I'm tired of the fake smiles, of pretending to love you when you never even look my way. I can't have you, and yet you don't want me to have anyone else. How much more miserable do you want me to be?" The prince was taken aback by her words, but as they sank in, he took a step forward, closing the gap between them. He pulled her into a tight embrace. "I love you," he whispered, close to her ear. "From the moment I met you, something changed in me, and I've loved you every single day since then. I thought you didn't love me, and I've been trying to find the courage to tell you how I felt. I just didn't know how to say it. And when I saw you with him, I panicked, thinking he might take you away from me. I couldn't bear it." He paused, then said again, "I love you, Princess Ojugo." Ojugo hugged him back tightly, the scent of his body familiar and comforting. Deep down, she had been harboring strong feelings for him too. She had noticed the way he sometimes looked at her. But when he moved out of their room, she thought he didn't love her and had been avoiding her. She had been so good at hiding her own feelings, letting her pride stop her from showing them. She thought involving Prince Dike might capture Ifeanyi's attention, and it had worked. Lost in their embrace, they made a silent vow to love each other unconditionally. The days that followed were filled with joy, as they both discovered happiness in each other's company. They learned to be selfless and to extend their newfound love and kindness to others around them. Their union grew strong and beautiful, much to the delight of the king and queen. They were blessed with wonderful children. And when Prince Ifeanyi eventually became king and Princess Ojugo became queen, they ruled the kingdom with immense love, continuing the legacy their parents had left behind. Their story became one of true love, found within the unexpected confines of a forced marriage, teaching them and their subjects about the power of understanding and compassion. Hey besties, we've come to the end of this story, and thank you so much for watching this amazing story. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. I would like you to share your lessons in the comments section. And if you are yet to subscribe to my channel, please and please and please, I beg you, do not skip this video without subscribing. And turn on the notification bell so that you get notified whenever we post new story. Please help us grow our community. And I hope to see you in our next story. Bye!